Let's go over the 5 key principles in selling fitness or any health and fitness program that you're selling. These are 5 keys that if you really understand and utilize on a daily basis in your sales conversations, you're going to have far more success than whatever strategy or system you're using now. The first one is this concept of always be disarming. And what does that mean? It means we're using strategies, or at least we're using a mindset for ourselves that helps to disarm the prospect rather than try to close the prospect at every second that we get, every opportunity we get. Old school selling techniques would say always be closing, right? ABC, that's an old school principle. And that used to work really well, where we just beat the prospect over the head with a hammer and force them into the sale, basically corner them into the sale. But now, more than ever, that's creating sales resistance, and they immediately throw a wall up to resist whatever it is that's coming next. And so rather than doing things that way, your number one job in the first 30 seconds to 2 minutes of any sales conversation is to be disarming so that the prospect actually lowers their resistance to ideally where there's really none at all. Especially if you end up talking with kind of a type A personality, it's super important to make sure that we're disarming the prospect first so that you can have this open and honest conversation where the prospect lowers their guard, opens up to you, and shares their real problems with you. Number 2 is, like we said before, is becoming a problem finder first. And what that means is, think about it this way. You're not selling fitness, right? We actually aren't, I know that sounds crazy, but we're not selling fitness. We're selling the results that come as a result of doing fitness or whatever your program is, health, nutrition, etc. That could be confidence. That could be fitting into clothes that are in the back of your closet. That could be the ability to bend over, touch your toes, and play with your grandkids. It could be a lot of different things, getting off of certain medications, right? But the most important thing to consider is if we're not able to find and help the prospect find those problems and really the issues that those problems are causing in their life, we're missing the boat. And we're going to end up having this kind of surface level, logical mindset based conversation versus a more emotional conversation, right? Think of the tip of the iceberg and everything underneath the water. We want to get into all that content underneath the water. What is that causing in their life? What are the real problems that this prospect is having versus just the surface level initial response that they shared with you? The third piece is active listening. This is probably something you've heard of if you've done really any coaching course or have some experience in coaching yourself. And it's kind of silly to think about, but most of us understand we need to listen to our prospects. But what I mean by active listening is really engaging, leaning into the conversation. This is especially important if you're in person. We need to be showing and somewhat telling the prospect that we're in it, that we're actually in this conversation, and we're not just thinking about the next question on our sales script. When we end up with prospects that especially are a little bit fearsome or have sales resistance, if you're a coach that kind of crosses your arms and sits back in your chair, and shows some behavior that shows that you're not really in the conversation, the prospect is only going to throw up more sales resistance because they don't feel like you're paying attention. So instead, we talk about this more in our advanced program inside of our FitRev 3.0 program. We work with our coaches and gym owners on this exact thing. But one of those ways that you can do this is through what we call verbal pausing. And what that means, and you don't want to fake this, of course, but what that means is when you're talking with a prospect, if they're sharing something about their life, you're actually, nodding your head, right? You're actually saying, aha, got it. Yeah, okay, right? You're actually leaning in. You're using small words, right, and sort of phrases that help. And again, you don't want to fake this. You want to actually just start to train yourself to engage in a conversation with the prospect effectively. Number 4 is quality questions over quantity. This is huge. You don't need to ask 70 million questions to a prospect, right, to where it starts to feel like an interrogation. That's actually the worst possible scenario, is to ask too many questions. So instead, and we'll go through this framework in actually the next video, but the right questions to ask in the right order in the right tone of voice that opens the prospect up and has them share exactly what's going on in their life and has them in the emotions versus just the logical, surface level responses. The reason why this is so important is because you could ask a great question, but it might be too early in the conversation, or it might be too late. Think about this. If you're going to ask a really deep question about, why this is so important to them and why they want to make this change now, if you just got on the phone with them 3 seconds ago and all of a sudden you dive into that question, you haven't earned that yet with the prospect. You can see what I mean by that. So we need to build each question after the next in order to first understand their current situation, what their strategies are now. Again, we'll get more into this in the next video. What they're doing now, their current routine, some of the problems they're having, the solution, what that could do for them in their life, etc. We'll go through all those pieces in the next video. Now, number 5, and the last piece as far as principles to follow in selling fitness, is going to be consistency over time. And we'll introduce the 3 C's framework here in a bit, but really it's about consistently and really every day practicing the skills laid out in this course and practicing the skills in sales by taking reps, actually having conversations to where you can slowly but surely master these skills. It's the same way with program design or nutrition support or whatever skills you've spent hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars on building with, whether it's through the OPEX course or otherwise. It takes time and it takes reps. So we need to make sure that we're actually going ahead and using consistency and consistently practicing our skills. So that's exactly why I went ahead and put together what we're going to lay out here in a second called the 3 C's framework. And that's going to be an outline of exactly how to walk a prospect through a sales conversation, whether this is over the phone or in person. So let's get into the 3 C's framework in the next video.